All right. Well, here we go. So, yeah, this is a bit different than what I would normally be doing on a Saturday. Usually, Saturday is reserved for my scripted, edited, basically the best work that I have. You can go to Break Room of Geeks for my unscripted ramblings, most of them anyways. But this time, I'm turning it into a live stream because I had made the decision that I was going to react to a nearly 7-year-old video in which I had previously made an argument against the idea of having a woman cast as the Doctor. Now, initially I thought I was just going to make it like any other video. I'd film myself, reacting to it. I'd put it together in, in the editing. But the thing was, I didn't like the idea that it would bring into question whether or not I had really overly thought about it, if I had prepared stuff, or if through the magic of editing, I had sort of tried to put myself in the best light possible or anything like that. I didn't want that to be at issue. So that's why I'm doing it live. Oh boy. So, couple of things about this. Firstly, though I see we have a decent amount of people in the chat already, and I'm really excited by that, unlike my normal bi-weekly Tuesday live streams, I'm not going to be paying attention to the chat because I don't want the chat to overrun this live stream. I want this mainly to be me reacting to the old video. So, unlike other times, I will only be responding to super chats. I'm not going to respond to those as they come up. I'm actually going to save that until the end. When I'm done, we will sort of decompress and wrap up, and at that time, I will address any super chats, comments, questions, or anything sent there. So keep that in mind, that I am not actively watching the chat. The other thing, I suppose, as a preface on all of this, is that I don't know the last time I rewatched this. I didn't rewatch this in prep of doing this. I know some creators say, oh, I never rewatch my old stuff, except, I do. I absolutely do sometimes, but it's been a long time since I've rewatched this. Probably at a guess, 3 or 4 years. So I generally remember what I said, but I don't remember my exact words for most of this. And this is also going to be a look back in time in a lot of ways, not just on my opinion, but of kind of who I was, because this was made about almost 4 years ahead of when I came out as gender fluid on this channel, and I was still presenting male. I was still trying to make a green screen effect work, which I actually think I could pull off now. I think I've got that figured out, but at the time I didn't really know what I was doing. The sound quality is probably going to be crap, but the one other thing I'll say is that, annoyingly to me, while I am glad that this video is not in my top 5 most views, it is number 6. And it's actually the oldest video in my top 30 most views. So this thing has persisted for a while, and I don't love that. And that's actually part of the reason why I wanted to address it and talk about it, since it is probably really out of date. We'll see. I've said in the past that my thoughts have changed, but given that it's so long since I last reviewed what those thoughts were, maybe it's time that I do that. So, oh boy. So right off the bat, I think this is actually one of the better times that the green screen worked. I never figured out how to properly adjust the green screen in the editor, at least not way back then. I do know how to do it now, but there's the green screen, and the sound is going to be weird and echoey because I did nothing about the fact that I was recording this in a very open room at the time. But there's the old hoodie. I hadn't even adopted the hat yet. That's how old this video is. I wasn't even doing the flat cap yet. But yeah, there's me. Well before I was putting myself out there as who I am. But you know what? That's enough delay. Let's get going on this.
Before I even get started, if you are not caught up through the end of Series 8 of Doctor Who, you need to go away right now. Just turn this off and walk away.
Okay, well, at least I gave a spoiler warning on that. That's helpful. I didn't have an opening credit sequence yet, so this, all right, I should explain this right off the bat. So this image is a holdover from back when Council of Geeks was originally a series of scripted shorts in which I played one of three characters, the other two being played by Nicole Bradford on the left and Nathan Colpitts in the center, who I actually saw earlier today at the farmer's market. So that's what this setup is. And I didn't have artwork commissioned yet. It's still the same music, though. I've always had the same theme music. But yeah, that's who those folks are. Nicole moved way a while back, but I still see Nathan on occasion. He's hard to reach unless I see him at the farmer's market, though. He's never on social media. Okay, anyways.
Everybody left is caught up, right? Good. Because I've been wanting to talk about this actually since even before it was announced that Peter Capaldi was going to be the 12th Doctor.
Okay, so I know I said about 7 years ago, but that should give you the time frame. I made this basically right after the Missy reveal. That's largely what this is in response to. So this was not made in response to Jodie's casting. This was made actually even before we knew when Capaldi was going to be leaving. So I very much jumped on poo-pooing this idea before a lot of people thought it was even likely to happen. I got on the ground floor. Go me?
I want to talk about the possibility of the Doctor becoming female, and specifically why I think that may not be a great idea. Now, I'm really hoping people are going to stick with me as I explain this, because I'm not just saying, oh, Doctor should always be a man. I want to explain this. I've got reasons for feeling this way. And given what just went on in terms of the Master now becoming Missy, I think I really need to talk about it, because I feel like we might as well start a clock for when they're eventually going to give us a female Doctor.
Okay, so I was right about that, but I think you can tell right off the bat that I'm already kind of preemptively being defensive. Like I somehow know in the back of my mind that that I'm gonna get accused of just being misogynistic, and you can tell from the way I am sort of being like, okay, now like understand why I'm doing this, understand why I want to talk about this, and that I've wanted to talk about it for a while, as if that would make it okay if I end up saying something really stupid, which again I don't remember if I do or not. I am going to check the chat really quick. I know the sound quality is bad, but are folks hearing it okay when I play the video? I am just going to check the chat on that real quick. Oh boy. Skinny Egg with boring glasses says, what? Thanks, Gozer. Thanks a whole bunch for that. Oh boy. Oh geez. A lot more people in the chat now. That makes me nervous. How many folks are watching me humiliate myself? Whew. All right. Can hear the video as well as... Okay, good. I thought I balanced it well, but I get paranoid. So we'll keep going.
I know there are a lot of people out there who want a female Doctor, but part of what bothers me and part of the reason I need to make this video is most of the people who are arguing, oh, the Doctor should be a female, seem to have as the heart of their argument, because it's time. Well, that...
Oh boy. So I think this, if I remember correctly, is going to be at the heart of what has aged really, really badly about this, is that I'm going to kind of demand that there be a reason to make this change, and that you can't just do it. And, well, you can. No matter what you think about Jodie's era or Chibnall, yes, you can just do it. You do not have to justify the existence of a woman. Oh, boy.
It's not a fully developed reason. I'm not saying it's a completely invalid one. I'm not saying that's not part of the conversation, but for a character that's been around this long, you've got to have more reason than that to change something so fundamentally, because it's got things that it's got to overcome, it's got issues that it's got to deal with, and that's mainly what I'm going to talk about here.
Okay, so there I am trying to frame it as carefully as possible, because at least, to old me's partial credit, at least I acknowledge that the fact that because it's time is at least in the conversation. I still kind of dismiss it out of hand as not being a fully valid reason, but at least I acknowledge that it's not an invalid consideration. I just reject it as being the primary one, which that's not great. And if I remember how this goes, I'm going to end up laying out a bunch of things that I'm going to say aren't necessarily reasons to never do it, but things that I expect to be addressed if this ever happened. And I don't think any of them were. And in hindsight, I don't care about any of this. Oh boy.
I'm not actually saying that the Doctor should never be female or that a female Doctor could never work. I actually would be very happy to see a female Doctor work. I've said a lot in various videos that one of my favorite things is to be proven wrong.
Okay, that hasn't changed. That about me is still true. I know some people really think I naysay a lot, but I never want to be right when I say I don't think something will work or be good. So that hasn't changed about me.
I love seeing something that I don't think is going to work and just watching it succeed. I love that. I had that happen to me a few times in Series 8 of Doctor Who. Robot of Sherwood was a great example. I don't like the historical set episodes where he meets a famous figure, but that was a fantastic episode. I loved it. I went in thinking I was going to hate it. So I like it when that happens, when something can take something that shouldn't work and makes it work.
Again, it's funny that at the time I was saying all these things assuming that it would make whatever I was going to say next okay. And so I had enough self-awareness to understand that I needed to cushion the nonsense that I was going to be spewing, but not enough self-awareness to realize, oh, actually, maybe this isn't something I need to even put out in the world in the first place.
What I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see the people behind Doctor Who caving to pressure from this growing population that seems to have a basic argument of, well, why not? Well, I'm going to tell you why not. Not why not, but why we can't just barrel ahead blindly into this idea.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not remember that I basically said flat out, I don't want them caving to pressure. Oh, geez. I suppose the one thing I'll say in my defense is keep in mind, I wasn't circulating among the not my doctor types of Who tubers. It's not like I abandoned them when they got toxic. I actually never watched any of them. So I don't think I realized that at that point in time, that was already a common kind of dog whistle phrase. Don't just cave into pressure because social justice warriors said you need to do it. I know I didn't say social justice warriors, but it's that sentiment. And hearing that come out of my mouth, oh God, no, honey, no. Oh God. Okay, this is actually, as of right now, a little worse than I remember it being. Oh, God.
There's two major hurdles that have got to be overcome if the Doctor is ever to become a female. One is more or less logistical, one is philosophical. I'm going to start with the logistical problems.
So, again, we'll see if memory serves me correctly. I remember last time I watched this thinking my philosophical argument was at least more interesting because the logistical, especially at this point in time, when I've made videos talking about how I hate the timeless child twist, absolutely, but we do not need to retcon it and we do not need to deal with the logistics of it. Once Chibnall's gone, whoever is the show writer next, just ignore it. So Doctor Who, as much as people talk about the canon of the show, Doctor Who has such a flexible, inconsistent canon. If something doesn't work, just don't talk about it. Just ignore it. Why do you think the show has never properly dealt with the idea that the Doctor is half human? That showed up in the Paul McGann TV movie. Just ignore it. If it doesn't fit, ignore it. So the fact that I'm about to demand that I'm about to give reasons as to why I'm demanding a logistical answer, like all of it's going to be nonsense because Doctor Who does not need to be airtight. It's not airtight. It will never be airtight. It's been going on too long and it's too sprawling. So I'm already grimacing at the fact that I'm even about to lay out this nonsense.
Now, in talking about the logistics, I'm going to have to go into a lot of history and a lot of backstory, even going back into the classic era. There's a lot we still don't know about regeneration in terms of how exactly it works and what Time Lords can or can't control about their new bodies. There seems to be a very limited degree of control over certain aspects. For example, River Song was concentrating on a dress size when she regenerated in Let's Kill Hitler. In Utopia, Derek Jacobi as the Master made it clear that he wanted to become younger as a reflection of the Doctor. So him becoming John Sim, a visibly, physically younger character, also seems to have been a conscious choice. But there's all sorts of stuff that is clearly just left up basically to chance. Things like hair and liver color.
Should have been kidney, but so this is another thing that I suspect is part of the reason why this video has persisted to the degree that it has is, in my defense, quote unquote, I did do some legwork. I did look into the history of regeneration and all that, except that what's funny is I'm in the process of pointing out the inconsistencies and how little we know about it, as if that isn't just a natural outcropping of the fact that the show has never really cared consistently how it works. And that the idea that I'm not now demanding well, here's, or I'm about to, if I remember correctly, I'm about to start demanding, well, out of these things that we do know, we have to stay consistent. Oh, for God's sake. Oh, this is more painful than I thought it was going to be.
And the problem is we don't really know what is something that they have control over and what's something they don't have control over. Now, I do need to touch on the one sort of anomalous regeneration really quickly, and that was Romana's. Because the thing is, she comes in and basically seems to try on several bodies and before deciding on one, and seems to have absolute complete control over the body that she does in fact end up choosing. The thing is, though, we don't know the circumstances of that regeneration. We never have. It may in fact have been a completely voluntary regeneration, and that may have been what gave her that degree of control, as opposed to all the other regenerations we've seen, which have been to prevent someone from dying, and they were more sort of last-minute desperation in dire circumstances. So maybe in a calmer situation, doing it completely voluntarily, maybe they're granted further control. I mean,
all right, so that's a lovely bit of headcanon, but I'm leaning on it like it's agreed fact, and it's not. There's nothing wrong with that idea as headcanon, because there's plenty of room in Doctor Who for headcanon, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't fit. And again, it just annoys me so much that I even made this big, here's the logistical reasons, as if Doctor Who has ever properly followed logistics. It doesn't. It never has. And and here's the thing. Here's where I'm irritated with my past self. While I'll give myself the credit insofar as I clearly did some research, to put together an argument as opposed to just spewing utter nonsense, the truth is that I went into that video already thinking, I don't think it's a good idea for the Doctor to regenerate into a woman. And then while I did my research, quote unquote, I did my research based around a conclusion I'd already come to. So, all of this is taking the things that I found about regeneration and about other things and coming at it from the angle that best suited the point I already decided I was going to be making, which is the classic way to do this wrong. Some of my favorite videos are actually ones where I went in intending to make one point and then did the legwork for what I was going to be talking about and realized, no, actually, I can't make the point I thought I was going to make. I'm going to have to make a completely different point. And that is not what happened here.
The real answer why Romana did that is because Douglas Adams was the script director at that point, and he thought it would be funny.
Oh my God, I just acknowledged the fact that there are flippant, ridiculous, reasons for these things, and that maybe it shouldn't be counted anyway. I just openly acknowledged that. And yet I'm still going on about how we need to be logistically consistent. How did I just acknowledge the fact that, maybe we shouldn't worry about this anyway, and then continue to talk about all the reasons we should be worried about this? Oh, God.
So I think we need to not dwell on that one too much. So
Yeah, well, maybe not dwell on the whole thing, dude. There's a thought. I can call my old self dude. It's okay.
let's look back about what we know about regenerations and about the regenerations that we...
God, the autofocus. It's going in and out of focus. I'm watching that happen and just, it's driving me nuts because since the background is green screen, the background's always in focus. Me, in and out, in and out, in and out. It was an embarrassingly long time before I sorted the manual focus on even that old camera.
Seen. I'm about to throw a whole lot of numbers at you. We are on our 13th physical body for the Doctor. We've had 7 incarnations of the Master, 3 of River Song, and 2 of Romana. Now, what we can also add in is Time Lord characters who we've seen played by more than one actor and are clearly in different bodies, even though we did not see the actual regeneration happen. That allows us to add in 2 Rassilons and 4 incarnations of former Lord President Barusa. So if you haven't been doing the math, that's 31 confirmed incarnations of different Time Lords. Why did I just throw all those numbers at you? Well, because out of those 31, Missy is the only one that we've seen gender swapped.
So, yeah, like, I'm not going to argue that, like, my research and my numbers were wrong, but I am just going to point out that the fact that I'm even making a deal out of this, and that I know that I went into this looking for reasons to make a case. But the numbers are, or they were at the time. This is obviously outdated. We've seen a lot more regeneration since then.
That would seem to lean towards gender being something that they choose to change as opposed to being a random factor. If gender was just going to be completely left up to chance, we should have seen more gender swaps up to this point just by law of averages.
So, wait, am I not going to bring up the Corsair? Because, yeah, Missy, yes, but, like, while we never met the Corsair, that was made very explicit. I hope I mentioned that. That's a big oversight if I didn't.
Now, I will grant it's possible that maybe gender is a random factor, but it only has, say, a 1 in 50 chance of swapping from one to the other. I don't think that's the case, though, because if we look at Missy and the characterization of Missy, the Master has really embraced femininity in a way that I don't think someone who just randomly just found themselves in the body of the other gender would do. It really seemed like that was something that that character wanted to have happen. And I want to ask...
Based on what? Based on what I say, I love the fact that I start with an open acknowledgement of harder data, the fact that it is possible that gender could be randomized, but it's not, even though there's 2 gender options, that doesn't mean it's a 50-50, that the odds of that thing swapping are actually completely different from just being an either one or the other, which is a totally valid thing that, like, invalidates all my data points, if that's the case, because we don't know the percentages of anything changing. And then so I give a hard data thing that actually kind of invalidates the points I'm making. And then I bring up how Missy behaves. Like, doesn't seem to me like that's someone who just ended up as a woman by accident. Like, but based on freaking what? Oh, geez, dude. Like, there is absolutely no reason that it could not have been a random change. And Missy just went, oh, well, that happened. Heck, let's roll with it then. There's no reason why that couldn't be the case. You just, it doesn't feel like it's that. Yeah. Data point of 1, solid info. Oh, God.
Add into that what we know about the Corsair, which was our original confirmed gender swap.
Okay, I didn't forget. Good.
Now, the Corsair is a character who we have never seen, but is talked about and mentioned in The Doctor's Wife. And what the Doctor tells us about the Corsair points very much towards a hedonistic personality. Now, that's important because a hedonist, someone who is very into all the pleasures of the world, is the kind of person who would voluntarily swap genders just so that they could experience all the pleasures that are unique to that gender. All this put together, to me, it really points heavily towards gender being something that is chosen and not a random factor.
Okay, so at least bringing up the Corsair, I am making more of a case beyond just, well, it doesn't feel like it, because, you know, the description the Doctor gave of the Corsair, like, it was hedonistic. And so, like, I am at least backing that view up with something, but again, that's pretty flimsy, and like a lot of what I'm saying is hinging on flimsy stuff. I'm not going to say like non-existent nothing stuff, but like I don't think that supports where you're going.
I'm sure there are some people out there who are going to point to Matt Smith's initial regeneration where for a hot second he thought he was a girl. But let's also remember he needed to confirm that he had legs and 10 fingers, and we've never seen a regeneration where they're missing limbs. I think that can just be attributed to the general regeneration wonkiness.
Well, there you go with headcanon again, stating it like it's fact. Like, yes, that's possible. It's equally possible that he genuinely thought that he had changed into a girl because that was a possible thing that could have happened. Like, that's a headcanon answer, but it's no more valid than the other option.
So it does look like gender is not random. So if
I feel like I built this around the number of things I was going to point out as opposed to any of them being particularly strong. I had hoped that a propensity of evidence would somehow make me right, even though taken on an individual basis, not great points.
the Doctor ever is going to become a woman, it can't just be a random he had no control over.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So, like, again, here's the thing. I made a case as to why I didn't, at the time, think that the gender could be a random chance. And I made a not terrible, but not amazing case for that point. But now I'm taking that as an accepted thing and moving forward like, well, since it is a choice, here's now the next set of things like, like it's, oh God, it's such a BS tactic too. You know, the whole idea of saying, well, I've made this case and let's just assume I'm right because I'm going to build the next part of my case on the assumption that I was right about this first thing that I may not even be right about. Oh, geez. Like that's the way that the nonsense gets bigger. It just picks up, it builds on itself. And by the time you're done, that got real ridiculous. Yeah, because you started with something that you made a case for, but didn't prove incontroversially, and then built upon that, so it just became more and more and more and more nonsense. Oh, okay.
He's gonna have to choose to become a woman. Why is that a problem? Why can't he do that? Well, the problem is he hasn't up to this point.
So what? So what? Oh my God. Okay. This is where I feel like where I was in my own gender journey at that point in time is really clogging my brain. Because at that point, I was not yet considering myself gender fluid. At that point in time, I still thought I was a cisgender male crossdresser. That's what I thought I was. Even though I had been experimenting with women's clothing since the age of 11 and had been actively going out in public in full femme garb and had gotten into performing both drag and burlesque as a female presenting person for years at that point, I still thought I was a cis male crossdresser. So the thing is, the idea that like, well, didn't voluntarily become a woman at any point prior to this, why would he do it now? Well, why did I go on hormones? Because I came to a better understanding of myself over time. Oh, you stupid summer child. If you'd realized where you were going, you would not be making this freaking argument. Oh God. You know, he wouldn't just change. Sure he would. Like, you don't know what's gone on in his head. Even if we accept that it is something that has to be chosen, that the Doctor changes gender, you don't know what's gone on in his head the past few generations. Maybe he's been thinking about it for ages, but then finally had the guts to do it. What was your life like several years after you made this video, you dingus?
And I don't just mean that in a way like, well, he didn't decide it up to now, he can never decide it. Here's the thing. It's not that the Doctor is above sort of rash or hasty decisions. He certainly made them at very...
Rash or hasty? Yes, because that's the only reason someone would become another gender. Is like, oh, just spur of the moment. Oh my God, I cannot believe I said that.
Various points. So the idea of him deciding on a whim that he's going to become a woman wouldn't necessarily be out of character, but here's the thing.
Just the fact that I said the phrase deciding on a whim to become a woman, and like what phrases like that have been used for against trans people in the years since. God, this is embarrassing. Holy crap. I've left this up. Ah.
The Doctor, the 11th Doctor, we called him the 11th, Matt Smith, was actually in what he believed was going to be his final regeneration. We didn't know that at the time. We didn't really find that out until the War Doctor got introduced, and then all that got made very clear in the time of the Doctor. That we found out that Matt Smith knew, and presumably has always known, that he was in what was supposed to be his last body. What that means is if he was ever going to decide, oh, I should be a woman while I still have the chance to at least try that once, he needed to have done it before he was in what he believed was his last body.
Okay, so again, like, this is an issue of me trying to project the thought process of any given Doctor in any given regeneration. Because the thing is, even knowing that he was on his last regeneration and he would never get a chance, again, assuming that it's something that you choose anyways, even if we assume that, and he hadn't chosen to be a woman, even up to his last regeneration, so what? One of the things that can really shake somebody out of a sense of complacency and just accepting the way things were is a new lease on life. At the end of the time of the Doctor, he literally has a new lease on life. Why couldn't that have changed his perspective and made him want to try other things later on that he hadn't thought were going to be worth his time, or that he hadn't thought he wanted to do prior to that? Like, what? Oh, God.
If there was any part of him that had an inherent desire to be a woman, he would have done that before he ran out of chances. Yes, he's got a whole new regeneration cycle with Capaldi that, for all we know, is infinite and he can go on forever. But he didn't know that was going to happen. He thought he was done. And even knowing that, he never decided to become a woman.
Oh, God. And again, just the ignorance of this, because, like, how many late transitioners are there at this point in time? How many people are there who honestly thought that their days of active living were over and they hadn't embraced that side of themselves? But even though they've quote unquote run out of time, or they think they have, they still embrace it later and are better for it. Like, what an absurd stance.
That's something that you can't just ignore or gloss over.
Yeah, you can.
I'm not saying that he could never decide to become a woman, but it needs to have more than just he decided on a whim. There needs to be something more fueled by the character, or some sort of compelling circumstances that are going to drive that decision.
No. Again, to give a trans person's perspective, he's basically saying, well, why are you trans? Tell me the reason why you are trans. No, I am. That's who I am. Why did the Doctor want to become a woman? We're going to have a good reason for that. No, we frickin' aren't. Oh.
What could that reason or those circumstances be? I have absolutely no idea, but I do think they do need to exist, and it can't just be, because we feel like it.
You know, maybe the fact that you couldn't think of a reason why this would, how it would go down, maybe is another indication of why they didn't do it. Oh, my God.
Moving aside from the logistical issues, we get into the philosophical debate, because I really do worry that changing the Doctor to a female is going to too drastically and fundamentally change the dynamics of the character and how the character is intended to work.
This makes me nervous. I don't think I ever make the Doctor has always been male and was intended to be male, end of story argument, but, like, oh God, it's skirting on the border already.
The Doctor's relationships with people, whether they are his companions or people that he just runs into, has always been fundamentally paternal in nature.
Has it, though? Like, some of them, sure. Eccleston to his Rose, that was fairly paternal. The second Doctor, towards somebody like Victoria, certainly, but he didn't have a particularly paternal relationship with Jamie. Arguably the seventh, if you equate a teacher-student dynamic to a paternal one, but that doesn't have to be paternal. I just say that. I don't think I back that up either. I just say it. It's always been a paternal relationship. Has it? Has it though? Because I don't think it has. At times, certainly. Always? No. No.
He's got that protective streak, but he's also a little bit emotionally distant, sort of the classic archetypal father figure.
Again, not always. Sometimes yes, not always. And you're saying it like it's always.
Of course, the gender swap version of a paternal figure is a maternal figure. Now, but there's a real big difference between maternal and paternal.
Yes, because if the Doctor suddenly looks like a woman, she's going to have to perform femininity. And therefore the dynamic will change because a woman can't express paternal leanings. Oh, God.
Because a maternal figure is going to inherently have a more emotional connection with those people, where...
Okay, I don't even have the spoons to deal with this incredibly oversimplified idea of masculine versus feminine roles in a paternal versus maternal relationship. Like, I don't even think I properly acknowledge how oversimplified this is. And based in stereotypes and societal expectations and not necessarily reality.
As the paternal figure is more emotionally distant, as the Doctor tends to be. It's not that he doesn't have emotions, he's not expressing them outwardly. Now, I'm not trying to make this a sexist argument.
You're not trying, but you still kind of are. Oh, God.
Like, women always wear their emotions on their sleeves. I'm just talking about the general natures and the archetypes of these sorts of relationships.
So break the archetype! Like that...
And of course, paternal figures can kind of run a gamut, a bit like the Doctor himself. They can be more hands-on and a little bit more gentle. They can be a bit more gruff and a bit more, why aren't you doing what I tell you? Which the Doctor has run that scale. Maternal figures, on the other hand, maternal and motherly tends to be a bit more rigidly defined than a father figure. Father figure...
So what? Who says the Doctor has to be maternal? What are you doing?
I don't know, they seem to have the freedom to have more room to breathe, but still fit the definition of a paternal father figure. Motherly figures, it seems like it's a much narrower definition, and I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to do as much with the character.
Okay, look, I think it is true that in general, this isn't just a maternal-paternal thing. In general, male characters are given a lot more leeway to be depicted in a much vaster number of tropes and character archetypes, etc., whereas women tend to have fewer to work from. But that's a problem with writing. That's not a problem with people. That's not, like that. That's bad writing trend. That's bad narrative societal writing trends. Why are you projecting as if we have to stick to that?
That's assuming that they even try and make the character maternal as opposed to paternal. Because really, what they should do is keep it paternal. Because that's fundamentally what the character has always been.
No, they have not. Often, not always. But
what I'm saying is, if we keep the character consistent and keep that paternal instinct, having a woman express the paternal tendencies is going to read somewhat off. It's going to read, in some ways, kind of defective. Because when you have female characters and who have difficulty expressing their emotions, that's not seen as a positive character trait. Not that it's necessarily positive in men, but it's expected in men. In women, when you have characters that are sort of more emotionally compressed and stunted, that's seen much more as an outright flaw.
Yes, but again, that's a societal and expectation issue that does not need to restrict the writing and the options for what a character in a show can be. Like, you're pointing out the BS context of life, but then accepting it and not challenging it.
And then there's some of the specific stuff that the Doctor tends to do rather frequently, such as he will frequently let people, his potential enemies, think that he is an idiot. And that's all very much playing off expectations, because the standard, stereotypical, generic expectation is the man walks into the situation and takes charge. When he bumbles in and acts like an idiot, they dismiss him. Well, when a woman comes in and does that, she's not just being bumbling and playing against expectations. First of all, there's no set expectation that she's going to come in and take charge anyway, so she's not subverting anything by acting like an idiot.
Okay, again, like, I feel like I'm zeroing in on my preferred incarnations of the Doctor. A lot of the versions of the Doctor that I like were like that. Did come in and seem like idiots. 4 would do that sometimes. 2 would do that a lot. 7 did it on occasion. But there are others who don't really do it. 3 rarely did that. 3 did come in and like act like he was already in charge of everything. And 8, I've never come across a situation where 8 intentionally acted like a moron. So it's just, I'm taking these qualities that are in the incarnations that I like more and projecting them as if that's how all Doctors are and how the Doctor should always be. And it's just, no. Just no.
And when a woman acts in the way that the Doctor has frequently acted to make himself look stupid, she becomes something a little bit more specific. She becomes a ditz.
I mean, like, okay. So here I'm talking about perceptions and how the character would be perceived differently, doing the same things, but doing it as a woman. First of all, moving past the fact, as I already pointed out, these are not inalienable things about the character. They don't have to exist in every incarnation, and they haven't existed in every incarnation. So even setting that aside, if that were true, why does that become a reason to not do it? Why does that not become an opportunity to deconstruct and comment on how a woman behaving that way is perceived differently than a man behaving that way? Why can't it become part of the story that a woman more emotionally guarded is not thought of and just regarded in the same way that a man who is emotionally guarded is? Why can't, now they didn't really end up, I mean, Jodie's Doctor is pretty emotionally guarded, but they didn't do anything really with that as yet, but outside of a couple of scenes. But like, I'm just presuming that, well, they wouldn't do that, or they couldn't do that, or that I don't think they did. Like, these are all opportunities to do new things. You're just arguing to never evolve or not step up to the plate, step up to a challenge.
What I'm saying is that there's a lot of stuff that the Doctor does that if a woman were to do, just changing that gender carries over a lot of baggage. And that change from one to the other, suddenly the dynamic of the character isn't functioning the way it normally does or the way it's supposed to.
You say supposed to as if every Doctor is the same, and they're not.
The fact that the Doctor, his first instinct is to run from danger is another example. Yes, the Doctor will eventually stand up and take charge, but his first instinct when encountering danger is to run and then figure it out. What's the stereotypical male action hero? He stands and fights with fists or a gun or whatever, and the Doctor doesn't do that. Again, subverting the expectation. When the Doctor, if he was to ever become a woman, again, there's no expectation that she would be standing up and fighting with fists and guns in the first place. So running away, it loses that subversion of the stereotypical hero.
Okay, so like, there's a slight point that I'm managing to make here, which is that the Doctor is a subversive character in a lot of ways, in terms of the expectations of a hero, especially in often very action-focused situations, which the Doctor frequently will find themselves in. That the Doctor comes at it with intellect and mischievousness and runs very readily away from things as almost a default. Like, all of those are, yes, subversions of the expectation of a masculine hero, but just because the Doctor becomes a woman, you know, okay, so the same subversions don't work, but you can subvert other expectations. Honestly, the fact that a woman would be in those situations at all is already an inherent subversion. With the Doctor, it's the way he behaves when he was a man. When it's a female Doctor, the fact that she's even in these situations is already inherently subversive. So that I get what I'm saying, but I'm wrong.
And instead, it's now actually more playing to expectations rather than subverting them. See, changing the gender is going to carry a whole lot of baggage. Now, it's our baggage. As viewers, to be fair, it's not...
Thank you for at least saying that much.
the fault of the character, it wouldn't be the fault of the writers. It's the viewers and general audience's baggage about gender roles and gender stereotypes.
I'm glad I did acknowledge that, but at the same time, I am basically kowtowing to those expectations and stereotypes, being like, well, this is what's expected, so can't go too much against the grain.
But that baggage exists. You can't act like it doesn't.
Sure you can. Sure you can. You can unpack it, you can lampshade it, or you can ignore it. That is an option.
And I just worry that that baggage would sink the show. I have a feeling at this point it's kind of inevitable. It's gonna happen at some point. I'm hoping it'll be a ways down the road. And I'm not gonna suddenly tune out if it's a female doctor. I'll tune in. Like I said, if they ever do it, I wanna see it work. One of my greatest joys was Matt Smith becoming my favorite doctor when I...
Oh, back when he was. It's Capaldi now, for the record.
Completely wrote him off at his initial casting. I thought he was going to be terrible. I thought he was going to be a Tennant knockoff, and he became my favorite. So I'm completely open to this working.
I'm open-minded. Really, really I am, I promise.
I just want to see the people behind it, when it inevitably happens, put the thought to address all this stuff and not just do it because it's time, or because there's this outside pressure, or because they can. Because if they don't address this stuff, or they don't at least factor it in some way and take this stuff into consideration, we'll be losing that classic, lovable, paternal figure for no good reason.
Oh, God. All right, look. I think a point that I was kind of making, but not really, is that for a long time, the kind of subversive hero that the Doctor was, there was not a great deal of. And I think I was bemoaning the idea that we would lose that particular kind of subversive hero. The thing is, though, there's a lot more instances of heroes like that since then. You know, whether it be in things you like or not. Off the top of my head, someone like Newt Scamander from the Fantastic Beasts movies, there are more instances of characters like, heck, the way Peter Parker's done in the Marvel Spider-Man movies is leaning towards this more subversive, you know, not coming in and taking control, but just having to come at things from a different angle, running away, regrouping, having to show empathy to figure out what the heck's going on. Like that, I feel like that is increasingly common, so we don't have to precious clutch to our chest and protect the Doctor as a man and as a masculine hero. And not to mention the fact that the previous 12 incarnations don't vanish because it becomes a woman. Even if I was right and like we lose this subversive male hero, okay, but temporarily, because at some point, whether it be the very next generation or it's several down the line, eventually the Doctor will be a man again at some point. So I'm treating this character whose history does not get erased by changing them into a woman like this precious thing that must be protected at all costs. And I don't even know where that's coming from.
So that's my thoughts on this. This has been percolating for a long time, and with what happened with Missy, I need to get it out there. What are your thoughts on all of this? I'd be more than happy to hear them. Whatever it is you think, whether you think I've got a point, whether you think I'm completely crazy, hopefully you don't just think I'm sexist. I hope I backed my arguments up better than that, but...
I mean, better than some, but not excellently. No.
You know what? Whatever it is you think, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Until next time, this council is adjourned.
All right, so there's the bits of the sign-off that I always used, but okay. Back when there were only 2 credits to list. Boy. So that's it. There are parts of that which were worse than I thought they were gonna be. Like, to a limited amount of credit to me back at the time, I seem to at least understand that I had to be careful, and like I did construct an argument. Like I said, backed it up with more than a lot of people. later on. And like, here's the one thing that I feel like was good for me. I am glad that I made that video so far ahead of Whittaker's casting. Now, like, I was still skeptical when Whittaker was cast, but even at the time that happened, my position had already softened. I think because I'd had several years to mull it over and kind of start to get over myself on the issue. And then by the time she actually started playing the role, I'd kind of worked through whatever nonsense it was that spurred me on to make this in the first place. So I think it benefited me in that, like, I didn't stick my head and pretend like this was never going to happen. Because I feel like in some way, I mean, with the Not My Doctor crowd, some of it is, honestly, they're just outrage merchants. But in terms of people who follow them and who buy into it, you know, some of them, I think part of the problem was that they refused to even engage with the idea of a female doctor until it happened. And then they weren't ready for it. And so all of the crap that I started working through like 2 or 3 years before the announcement, they only just started working through when the announcement happened. So like my softening on this whole thing was, yeah, I really wonder if I'm going to still leave that publicly viewable. I may finally take it down to have this up. So if people want to know what I thought then, now the only way to see it is couched around me commenting on it now. But having done all that, let's take a look at the super chats that came up while I was doing that. So first up, oh, Aongus, thank you. Evening, Vera, thank you very much. It is afternoon here for me. This video was the first thing I ever saw of you. It took me a couple years to come back. Diana Bell, thank you. I'm glad I did. I'm glad you did too, but like I could not blame anybody if after seeing that it put them off watching my stuff at the time, or even if you saw it later on. I can't blame you for that. Sam C, thank you very much. So happy to be catching you live for the first time. Much love from the Philippines. Thank you very much. Brian L, loved you then, love you now. Well, that's good. Thanks for sticking around through the journey. And Diana Bell again. Internalized heteronormativity is such a drug. It really is. Like, it's so weird because not only am I going back and looking at an opinion I no longer hold, but it's coming from a perspective that is not even anywhere close to where I am now. So, like, in some ways I'm reviewing the things I said. In other ways, I'm reviewing the person I was, which is demonstrably not the same. Tracy Dale, thank you very much. Oh my, it's been quite a journey. Yes, it has. And for the better, I certainly think. And finally, Aaron O, thank you so much for the support. It's been quite entertaining seeing how much you've grown over the years. I honestly, like I said, I did not prep. I didn't rewatch this in preparation for this stream. I really didn't know how bad it would get at points. I remembered my general points, and I think in my head, I'd like, well, I think I kind of made a decent argument. It's just not something I would argue for now. But rewatching it and really sort of confronting who I was and what I thought and the case that I made, I'm a bit embarrassed by that now, which I wasn't sure I would be. I had thought, the optimist in me thought it was going to be more of a case of, well, here are the problems, but it wasn't a bad argument. No, it was a bad argument. It was a bad argument built on moving forward based on assumptions that I pretended were fact when they weren't, occasionally acknowledging that, but then plowing forward as if I'm already right. It's, that was a bit to work through and to process. Oh, we have had one more super chat come in. Thank you, Microraptor. Oh, Rainbow Hearts. That is much appreciated. But we are going to wrap it up there. It's tempting for me to start interacting with the chat, but if I do that, I'm going to be here forever, and it's already been almost an hour. So thank you for coming with me and joining me on this journey of looking back and realizing how much I am not that person anymore. So thank you very much for joining me. I want you to be well, be safe, and be kind. More important than that, remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I just run the meetings. Whether I'm right or wrong, it's still me. Oh, one more super chat. Adrenaline, thank you so much. This video is going to be a helpful model for so many people who struggle with the saving face that many of us cling to when we've already changed our minds. I will say on that, just briefly, like, yes, there is, especially with online punditry, it's seen as weakness to change your position. So there is this praising of pig-headedness and acting like you've always been right and you've never been wrong, which is stupid. It's stupid. Get over yourself. It's okay to have been wrong before. But yeah, we are going to wrap it up. Please remember also that you, my friends, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings, whether I'm right or I'm wrong. And thank you to the people who back then called me out on it and have done so in the years since. Because, yeah, I deserved that. Until next time, this council is adjourned.